Well, good morning and welcome to Zen Live, or ideas that can change your mind. And so here it is, Saturday morning. I don't know if anybody's up or not, but I'm up, pumped up and ready to go. Came down and to my excuse me, computer and wrote a comment to a friend explaining a metaphor, and I came up with a really great metaphor or analogy that I wanted to rush right in here and share with you before I forgot it. And one of my favorite TV shows, even though I don't watch the new one, is MacGyver, because I remember the old one. And so the MacGyver principle is that you use whatever you've got to get out of a fix. That's the metaphor. So this is the movie, the TV show is a metaphor, but it's still just a TV show that's about this guy who uses whatever is available to get out of a fix. Well, the fix is communicating, communicating what? Communicating what you see. How do you communicate what you see if no one else can see it? How do you communicate what the taste of coffee is if you can't use words? I mean, words, if I wanted to tell you what this coffee tasted like, I don't know how I would do it. I might have to say, well, it's a little bit like Starbucks, but better because it's not as strong. Now, what does that say, you see? So I can't communicate the taste of the coffee or the taste of a strawberry or the cake my wife made last night. Well, I can use metaphors, symbols, poetry, whatever. But the point is to communicate what I see or what you see requires a little creativity. So the creativity I came up with a wide-angle lens. Now I'm a photographer, retired, and I've got a camera bag. And most people don't use cameras like this now because everything, I can do a wedding on an iPhone. And but the point is, this camera has a zoom lens. It's a wide angle and it's a zoom angle. And you can get lenses that have various degrees of zoom in and zoom out. It's kind of like a Google map. Zoom in, zoom out. It comes with the map. It comes with the lens, you see. So if you ever use a camera lens, the zoom in is a narrow focus and the zoom out is a wide focus. And you'll also notice that when you zoom in on something, it's very sharp in focus, but the background is blurred. It makes a good portrait. But then when you zoom out, everything's in focus. You don't even have to focus the camera. If you have when you're in wide angle, you don't focus, you just shoot. Everything's in focus. But the amount of wide angle that you see depends upon the lens you've got. Now I've got a really good wide angle lens. It's called a primary lens. It's just a wide angle, but it's much wider than the wide angle on my zoom lens, you see. So if I want to take a big wide group, I'm going to put this lens baby on, you see. Because then everything, I can stand right here and shoot a big crowd of people with that lens. Where with my zoom in, zoom out lens, I'd have to start walking back, you see, so I could get the whole angle in. So the background is context. The background is context. Now what happens when we begin to perceive reality looking through the lens? Now what comes with our culture? Our culture gives us a lens for the mind. and it is a zoom in, zoom out lens. But the background is not that big, you see. You can zoom in really good with our culture. You can focus in on anything. I mean, you can, well, just take this iPhone. Now, I look at it here, but I can start zooming in on it and zoom in on the different physical qualities, which is what you do when you go to the promotional piece. It zooms in on the little features. Oh, look at that! Look at the corner of that. You see, or you could zoom into the interior and look at the functions of the camera. And you look at all the different little functions, and then you can keep zooming in. You see, zooming in, zooming in. There's no end to zooming in. But there is an end to zooming out with the lens that comes with our culture. It doesn't want you to zoom out too far, because then you might see the whole culture, you see. So it keeps the background that comes with the lens within the context of culture. You get the idea? I think this is a great analogy. I never thought of it before this morning. I've been using wide angle, but I never really thought of it in terms of when we are born into a culture through our parents. They acculturate us, learn what is this, we learn a language, we learn what's good and bad, and then when we're adolescent, we leave childhood and we're socially adapted, we adapt socially, we leave our childhood identity and have become a social identity. We have a self-image. And then we live in an adolescent culture. And we watch heavy metal music and adolescent movies and things that interest that adolescent culture. And then we finally, maybe one day we grow up and leave the parents' basement and enter into the adult culture. But it all comes with the same lens. As we grow through stages in our life, the lens that is given to us by culture gives us a little wider background, you see. So when I become an adult, whoops, I'm all tangled up here. When I become an adult, basically what I'm doing is getting a little wider angle. And now I see my adolescent wide angle within the context of a larger wide angle. And the meaning of my adolescent changes. You see, the meaning of everything is relevant to the background. Now we know this we watch this, this is so common now, but the green screen first came out with the weatherman. So the weatherman stands here and points to the weather, but he's really standing in front of a green screen. This background of the weather map is projected onto it. And now we make movies that way. So all of Avatar and all of these movies we're watching are green screen movies. The actors are just acting in front of a green screen. And you project where they are. They might be on Mars. They might be in the jungle. But wherever the background is, that creates the meaning of the foreground. So you got a weatherman standing in front of a weather map. Well, the meaning of the weatherman now, that's the foreground, which you zoom in on. That is relevant to the context. He's pointing to California. But what if they switch the background and it's a clown and he's pointing to the nose of the clown? You see? So the background, whenever I look at something, I abstract it from the background. So I'm looking at this cup, you see, but this cup here has meaning because it's in the background of this room. I'm drinking from it. But I could change the meaning of the cup if I change the background, which is what MacGyver does. MacGyver can use anything. Here's a little bookmarker. So it's a bookmarker. And the meaning says Sharpie. And the meaning of it is relevant to its use in a particular background. If I have a book, I'm going to mark it. But what if I need a tool? What if I need something to dig me out of a hole? You see, well then this becomes a shovel or a pick or a knife. I could be anything. You see, so I'm changing the meaning of this by changing the context. I need a knife. Change the context. This becomes a knife. Go back to the other one, it becomes a marker. Now the fundamentalists would say, wait a minute, you can't use that for a knife. This is a marker, and that's what it is, and that's what it's always going to be, and you can't use it because God created that. But MacGyver says, wait a minute, I need a knife. Or whatever the thing is, you see. And so he changes the meaning of it and its function. A good story was, how much is a pencil worth? I think this was a salesman thing. So how much is a pencil worth? Well, 5 cents, 2 cents. Well, what if I say, if you sign your name to this check, you're going to get $20,000. But you need a pencil. How much is this pencil worth? I'll give you $1,000 for that pencil. Change the context, change the meaning. Okay. Let's see if I can get back to our original metaphor here. Our original analogy is that culture gives us a preset zoom lens that will increase the wide angle when we go through the stages of life. Childhood has a very limited wide angle. The little kid, the toddler, all he can see is right here on the coffee table, and then he gets to see the room, and he begins to expand. His universe expands. And then he begins to explore the house. Get a cat and bring a new cat into your house, and you watch it explore its world. It'll check out everything, making a map of the whole world. It's increasing its wide angle. So we grow through increasing the boundaries of our wide angle. And my point is that culture gives us a preset zoom in, zoom out lens that is preset for the biological stages of life, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and retirement, because retirement also has another context. When we're in the householding business stage between adolescence and retirement, the wide angle provided by culture sees reality in the context of that culture, which is get out there and get a job and work and build a family and yada yada, and you do all of the steps and you follow all the rules that's provided within that context. But then you retire and all of that has no more meaning. Now you don't have a job, the kids are all gone. Now you've got another lens, another angle, another context, you see. So we have a lot of the problems with retirement is that you can't leave the old context. I wish I had a job. I don't have any meaning now. Or the kids are all gone and I'm not a mommy anymore. You see. So we have to discover a new, but at the same time, this is the context that's provided by the operating system of the cultural mind from birth to death. The stage is in there. But with the cultural, you can't go beyond that. So this is where Buddhism comes in. You never thought I'd get back to that, did you? Well, Buddha nature, I'm not a Buddhist, and I don't get in worshiping Buddha, and I'll forget that. We're talking about a psychological situation here. So is there a lens that's wider than the one provided by culture? That's what we have to ask. Is there a lens that's wider that includes culture? Non-duality is popular today. Enlightenment, awakening, whatever the tradition, mystical Christianity, Buddhism, Advaita, yoga, Zen, Dr. Dwyer, I don't know, Eckhart Tolle, The list goes on. But all of that, basically, is pointing to a wider lens. One that sees, has a breakthrough aha, that sees the cultural context in that has given me meaning. And just as I said, when your wide angle includes the previous wide angle, the meaning of life changes. Because the context gives the meaning. And then let's get into our particular cultural dilemma now, in which everybody is fighting and being offended because of positions. So I got my position, my political position. And your political, you offend me, you see. So my position is being threatened by your position, and I'm angry or I'm offended. You know, something on TV. The View offends me, I ought to take it off TV. Or Fox offends me, take it off TV. So everybody's got their position is offended. Well, the position that I defend, the position that I identify with, has meaning according to the wide angle, the context. Now, where does that context come from? Well, now we go back to the green screen. So the green screen, in other words, everything I look at has to have a background. Otherwise, you got a can of soup by Andy Warhol. So you put a can of soup there. There's no background. What does it mean? See, something totally abstracted from the background has no meaning. Look at Space Odyssey 2001. That obelisk comes there with the apes and it comes up with the astronauts. They don't know what it means. What does it mean? There's no background. There's nothing it can reference to. And that creates conspiracy theories. That creates all kinds of odd things happening when something happens in our life that has no reference to the context that we believe is behind it, you see. So, when something appears, it has to have meaning, and it has to have meaning according to a background. Now, culture, our beautiful American culture, now has the cultural mind now has two zoom in, zoom out lenses. Has two lenses, which means each lens, if you have a left lens or a right lens, is going to provide a different background to give meaning to what you see. So, if Charlottesville happens, you have a march there in Charlotte. You have the alt-right or the Nazis march in Charlottesville. That's a fact. But then we put on the left lens or the right lens, and the green screen comes in and we put a different background there. And now the meaning of the march has two different meanings. Or anything that happens in the media today, which is our cultural lens to the world, everything we see is through the media. If I didn't have media or any contact with the outside world, all I would know would be Blackstone. That's the way life used to be. You just knew your hometown. And everybody gossiped about and knew what was going on in the hometown. There was very little media contact with the outside world, except what came in on the newspaper. Get the newspaper and you read about what happened in the world. Pretty, not very hot, it's just not emotional. You just, oh, that happened. Oh, that, you know. But now, we got this big media, like a window or a big glass window in an aquarium, and we're looking at it the whole world, you see, but we look at it through the eyes of media. So media provides background. And now our culture is divided into, basically, with a lot of little sub things, you see, basically into a lens that operates like a green screen. So my particular preference or my particular position or identity is going to project a background or a narrative to the same thing that both lenses see. So both lenses see the same event, but they have a split meaning because each one throws a different background upon it, you see. So the object that we see is kind of like Andy Warhol's soup can. It's kind of like this. There's a cup. So if I've got a right lens, I'm going to project one background here to give meaning to the cup. If I have a left lens, I'm going to project another background here to give meaning to the cup. What's the meaning of the cup? Well, now I say, well, it's my meaning because there's the background. Then the other one says, no, it's my meaning. There's the back. So now we go to war over backgrounds, you see. I can't, reality has to be one. It can't be two. So I got to get rid of that. I think my thing just rang. Maybe it's, well, no wonder I can't hear it. I have had the volume off. Okay. So I think that will wrap it up right now. But you get, I hope this, maybe we'll pick this up again. But I think this is a great metaphor to try and understand why we're at war with ourselves. Why we keep getting offended by the other view. You see. So anyway, let's stop there, and I'll see you this evening.